Good morning. First, a big thank you to the folks at Sierra Grande for allowing us to use their facility. And some anecdotes. You know, I hear feedback, some folks feeling like coming to this is trouble, they could be doing some better things, stuff like that. And I have no doubt that folks are going to have that experience. But I'm also hearing and seeing some pretty amazing things. I've seen, since the time we gathered in Sargent, some high school language arts teachers going and visiting each other's classes in each other's schools around the valley. I've heard of PLCs getting together and communicating between sessions and sharing resources or sharing lesson plan ideas. And that's what this is about. This event is about you taking advantage of the time you have together as professionals to raise your professional abilities. We're doing the best we can to shepherd it in a direction and offer you things that we think could be useful to you, but until you take it and run with it, it's not going to become what it can become. And you know, I think there's pockets of that happening, but there's also pockets of folks feeling like it's not meeting their needs yet. And so we're going to try to do a better job at the end of the day today from the PLC level as a whole to get some feedback as to, you know, how do you feel it's going? What would you like to see different? The reason I'm presenting right now is I'm about to introduce Casey Shea from Great Ed Colorado. And Casey's here to talk about the Year of the Student, which is going to be 2013 in Colorado, and what that's all about. I don't feel like you should go into Casey's discussion or presentation without a little bit of background knowledge, and that's understanding, one, the important role that the San Luis Valley is playing in school finance in Colorado right now. And number two, the fact that the stars are starting to align to the point where something may change. If I were to give you three choices where Colorado ranks in funding per pupil in Colorado, top 25%, middle 50%, or bottom 25%, where would you guess we would be? Bottom 25%. In fact, I believe we're currently 48th in the nation in average per pupil spending in the state. We are 51st in the nation in spending on special education kids. And you say, okay, I was in geography. Is there something wrong with being ranked 51? Who are we behind? People say Puerto Rico, Washington, D.C. even. And that's what the situation looks like in Colorado. We don't fund our students well. But what's going on right now is there's a pretty big effort happening at the state level. It's being led really by Senator Michael Johnston. He's getting focus groups together talking about what education funding might look like in Colorado. It's scaring people. It scares me at some level. But the one promise I've heard is none of these changes are going to happen unless we find a way to get more money into the system. And the only way we're going to get more money into the system is if we at the ballot box vote to put more money into the system. So I'm going to just kind of share with you a scenario. One of the basic tenets of school finance in Colorado is that it's supposed to, first of all, be kind of fair. That every kid in every district gets a base level of funding that is equal all over the state. Okay, and that's important because then what happens is there's some factors that go into that determine in the end what you get per kid. One of the next important factors, and this is very important to the San Luis Valley, is that the funding ultimately should be based on size. What you need per kid in Creede, Colorado looks different than what you need per kid in Jeffco. What you need in Alamosa, Colorado should look different than what they need per kid in Colorado Springs District 11, so on down the line. And then one of the other major tenets of education funding in Colorado is the at-risk factor. And that means if you have the most difficult students to educate, you should get more dollars to educate those students. Raise your hand if you disagree that it's harder to educate a kid who comes from poverty than it is to educate a kid who comes from a high socioeconomic background. Do you disagree with that? I don't disagree with that. Raise your hand if you disagree that it's harder to educate an English language learner than a non-English language learner. Right? Raise your hand if you think if you disagree that it's harder to educate a special education kid than a non-special education kid. That's what I'm talking about by those at-risk factors. Let's compare two actual districts in the state of Colorado. See if you can figure out which ones these are. Let's say one of them has about 580 students, not a real big population center. Let's say their poverty level is about 89%. And let's say that 57% of their kids are ESL. Don't even go into the special ed. You're looking at about a 12% special education student rate here, okay? Fairly at-risk student population, fairly small population center. Take a look at District B. Has 3 times as many students. And if I did math better, I'd probably realize that's more closer to 4 times. 6% poverty level means 94% of their students come in from a pretty decent socioeconomic base. And they do have 13% of their students who are English language learners, which is fascinating to me because that means that 7% of their English language learner families are above the poverty level. That's fantastic. Who should get more dollars per kid? Okay, based on the fundamental tenets of Colorado financing, I would think District A. District A gets $7,207 per student. That's because there's a base, and that's because these factors add on to the base, and that's how many dollars you get per kid. District B gets... Okay, and that's the reality in Colorado. And here's what's not even talked about yet. That's before a mill levy override. Look at that second bullet. Okay. District B starts with basic funding in Colorado, more than District A that has the greater challenge, and then they have the local property to go into to pass a mill levy override. And listen, what my speech is not about is asking that we take money from District A and give it to District B. But what my speech is about is thinking about... by the way, is District A and District B held accountable in different ways? Heck no. No, all held accountable for the same things. And so, my question is should District A not be allocated more basic dollars or have ways to access more operations dollars than they currently do under the current mill levy system? And for example, think about creating something like the BEST program, but for operations. We build a plan, we take it to our community, we sell it to our community, we put in what we can, and maybe some more dollars come in to help us figure. I don't know. I don't know what the solution is. But what's clear is there's a problem. And because there's a problem, we've got to do something about this. And no matter who creates a solution going forward, and there are folks working hard on creating a solution, the reality is the solution will not be put into play if it's not one at the ballot box in the end. And it's not going to be one at the ballot box in the end if you guys are not intelligent enough and in tune enough to go out and talk with your neighbors about why this is ultimately important if a successful plan is built. So that's why we're doing this.